Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Neha and on this channel I post videos about community services, leadership and management and vocational education in Australia. Today I'm diving deep into community development. So in this video you will understand what community development is, why it's important, how it's done and what are the challenges that come its way. I hope by the end of this video, you will have an understanding about community development and how you can be a part of it as well. So let's jump in. Alright, let's first understand what community development is. At its core, community development is a process where people who live in a particular place or share a common interest work together to improve their quality of life, strengthen their community bonds, and build local capacities. It is about collective action, local leadership, and sustainable changes. Community development is a process by which community members come together to take a collective action and generate solutions to a common problem. Often with the support of external agencies to build capacity, empowerment, and sustainable improvements in social, economic, and environmental well-being. Let's unpack this a little bit. Local capacity and empowerment means developing skills, knowledge, and confidence so the community can steer its own future. Collective action means it's not just one person, it's a group of people working together. Sustainability here refers to the changes that last, not one-off projects that fade away. To give you an example, not-for-profit neighborhood houses across Victoria, these are locally run community centers offering adult education, social classes, meeting spaces. And over decades, neighborhood houses have played a role in connecting people, building social capital, and enabling locals to run programs they care about, such as gardening groups, language classes, and youth support. Another example is a community-led bushfire recovery after the 2019-20 Black Summer. In many towns, local residents organized forums, working groups, shared resources, and created locally relevant recovery plans rather than waiting for top-down solutions. So community development is a bottom-up, people-centered approach to change. So what are the purposes and goals? Why we do the community development and what are we trying to achieve through it? So here you see some major goals. To begin with, improve quality of life. Better health, safety, housing, education, recreation. Improving quality of life is about more than just fixing roads or building houses. It is about creating places where people feel safe, connected, and supported. For example, a community garden that gives fresh produce or a mentoring program for youth. Promoting social inclusion and equity. Ensure marginalized groups, for example, Aboriginal communities, migrants, or people with disabilities, have voice, resources, and other opportunities. To reduce social isolation and discrimination. Build local capacity and empowerment. This goal is about giving people the tools, skills, and confidence to take control of their own development rather than relying on outsiders. Training community leaders, building local institutions, making local decision makers. When communities are empowered, they become self-sustaining, solving problems independently and building long-term resilience. Strengthening local economy. Support small businesses, social enterprises, and local job creation. Circulate more resources locally. Sustainability and resilience. This goal focuses on ensuring that the changes made in a community can last long term and the communities are prepared for future challenges, help communities adapt to shocks such as natural disasters or economic downturns, foster social capital and community cohesion, networks of trust, cooperation, shared norms, more vibrant civic life, festivals, volunteerism, shared public spaces. Now let's move on to why it's important. Why should we care? Why does community development matter? Here are the key reasons. Address local needs more accurately. Community development ensures that the people who actually live in an area are involved in identifying what needs to change. This is crucial because national or top-down programs often miss the subtle but important needs of local life. Whether it is a lack of accessible public transport, gaps in youth engagement, poor local health services, or social isolation, these issues vary widely between communities. Local people understand their lived realities far better than outside experts. When development efforts begin by listening to these voices, the solutions are far more targeted, relevant, and effective. Ownership. When local residents are actively involved in shaping and running community projects, they feel a greater sense of ownership instead of seeing a new service or initiative as something done to them. They see it as something they helped create. And this ownership not only boosts participation, but also improves the long-term sustainability of projects. People are more likely to maintain and protect what they feel belongs to them. In short, development works best when it's not just for the community, but by the community. Efficiency and innovation. Community development taps into local knowledge, creativity, and resourcefulness, and that often leads to more efficient and innovative solutions. Local residents tend to know where resources are being wasted, what alternatives could work, and how to get things done in a tighter budget. Rather than relying solely on external consultants or generic programs, community-led efforts often uncover the low-cost, high-impact innovations because they're grounded in real-world experience, and these ideas are more flexible and better adapted to local realities. Social cohesion and trust. When communities work together towards a common goal, they naturally begin to build trust, reduce the tensions, and strengthen social bonds. And this is especially important in places where there might be conflict, division, or social isolation. As people collaborate, even across differences, they learn to rely on one another and build mutual respect. This cohesion is not only good for day-to-day life, but is also very essential during times of crisis. Communities that trust one another are far better equipped to respond to emergencies and support each other when challenges arise. Equitable development. Community development helps ensure that no group is left behind. Too often, development benefits only the most visible or powerful voices in a community, while others like migrants, low-income families, people with disabilities, or minority groups are excluded. A community-led approach opens up space for broader participation so everyone has a say in shaping their future. And it leads to more balanced, inclusive outcomes where the benefits of growth and improvement are shared more fairly across the population. Resilience in adversity. Communities that have gone through the development process, that have strong networks, clear communication, local leadership, are far more resilient in a face of adversity. Whether it's a natural disaster like bushfire or flood, economic shock or health crisis, these communities are far better prepared to respond, recover, and rebuild. And this resilience is built not just through physical infrastructure, but through the social capital, the relationships, trust, and experience that comes from working together over time. For example, after the 2016 bushfires in Victoria, many local community groups played essential roles in supporting rebuilding emotional recovery. And government aid helped, but the local network, such as service clubs, local councils, neighbors, were critical. In some towns, recovery was slower when social cohesion was weaker. So community development is not just a nice idea, but it is very essential. Okay, so how should we do community development? We don't just randomly do projects. There are guiding principles, and here are these principles. Begins with participation and inclusivity. Everyone affected should have a chance to participate: women, youth, minorities, and all groups. And the process must listen to voices. Empowerment and capacity building. Help people develop confidence, skills, leadership. The goal is not dependency, but local agency. Bottom-up approach. Initiatives should emerge from community priorities, not imposed from outside. Holistic and integrated. Recognize the interconnections such as economy, health, and environment. Sustainability. Financially, environmentally, socially sustainable. Plan for a long term, not short projects. Partnerships and collaborations. Work with governments, NGOs, businesses, but community leads. Shared responsibility, not sole contract by one act. Equity and social justice. Prioritize the marginalized. Work to redistribute the power, opportunity, and resources. Contextual and locally adapted. Recognize that each community is different, whether it is the history, whether it's the geography or the culture, and avoid the cookie cutter solutions. Accountability and transparency. Processes and decision making should be open. Monitoring and evaluation and feedback loops should be there. What are the different types of community development? So community development is not a one-size-fits-all process. And depending on the local needs and priorities, projects may focus on different areas, and often these types overlap and support one another. To begin with, economic development. This focuses on improving the local economy in ways that directly benefits residents, especially those who are disadvantaged or excluded from mainstream markets. And this can include things like microfinance initiatives, job creation programs, local cooperatives, or social enterprises. The idea is to keep money circulating within the community while creating opportunities for sustainable income. For example, in some regional towns in New South Wales, communities have launched buy local campaigns and community trading schemes to help boost small business income, especially during economic downturns. And these initiatives not only support local livelihoods, but also foster a sense of economic self-reliance. Social development. So this aims to strengthen the community's social fabric by improving access to healthcare, education, youth services, and support the vulnerable groups. It is about building more inclusive and connected communities where everyone has access to the services they need. One example of this is the Queensland Community Hubs, which bring together after-school programs, elder care, parenting groups, and even health services all under one roof. And these hubs make essential services more accessible while creating a shared space where people of all ages and backgrounds can connect and feel supported. Next is cultural development. Cultural development recognizes that a community's identity, traditions, and the creativity are essential parts of its well-being. These projects might focus on preserving local heritage, celebrating diverse cultures, or using art and performance to bring people together. Then there's environmental and ecological development. Environmental development looks at how communities can become more sustainable and resilient to climate and ecological changes. This might include community gardens, waste reduction, water management, or renewable energy projects. Next is physical infrastructure development. This type of development focuses on the physical structures and services a community needs, like roads, sanitation, housing, or shared spaces. It's not just about building things, but making sure that infrastructure supports social life, access, and safety. A well-designed community center, for example, can become the heart of a neighborhood. And in many cases, infrastructure projects also tie into other types of development, like when a new space becomes the site for health services, markets, or youth programs. Political or civic development. Civic development is about strengthening democracy at a local level, and it helps communities become more active in governance, planning, and advocacy. This can include training in leadership and rights, setting up forums for public input, or involving citizens directly in budgeting decisions. One example comes from Victoria, where some local councils have introduced participatory budgeting, giving residents a direct vote on how a portion of council funds should be spent. It is a powerful way to build trust in public institutions and ensure that local voices shape local decisions. Then we also have some blended approaches, and often community development projects span multiple areas. For instance, a renewable energy cooperative may tick economic, environmental, and infrastructure boxes all at once by generating income for the community using clean energy and building local facilities. The best development work doesn't stay in silos. It addresses the real, interconnected lives of people involved. Who are the actors? Who plays in community development? It's not just one group. Here are all the key stakeholders: local community members, residents. They are the heart of it. They define the problems, propose the ideas, and implement. Community leaders, local champions, example, elders or youth leaders or respected individuals who mobilize. Then we have non-governmental organizations or not-for-profit organizations or community-based organizations. They also provide technical support, funding, training, facilitation. Local governments or municipal authorities, they can provide policy support, infrastructure, funding, approvals. State and federal government agencies, especially in Australia, via grants, regulatory environment, program funding. And we have donors who provide financial resources, capacity building grants, private sectors or other businesses. Local businesses can partner, for example, a sponsor who provides skills, social enterprises, impact investors. Academic institutions, universities, researchers, they offer expertise, evaluation, research, trainings. And last, we have external facilitators or consultants to help with process design, mediation, technical knowledge, but must not dominate. Okay, so now how do you actually do community development? What is the process? Let's walk through a typical step-by-step framework that many successful initiatives follow, and it's not only always linear, but also these stages provide a solid structure to guide any project. So the first step here is community entry or engagement. The first step is entering the community with respect and humility, and this means taking time to build the trust, listen, and learn about the local context, its history, its culture, challenges, and dynamics. Rushing in with assumptions or pre-made solutions often leads to resistance or failure. In this phase, it's about showing that you are to collaborate, not control. For example, a team working in a low economic urban neighborhood has spent the first 6 months simply meeting with its residents, attending local events, and learning the stories behind each street and space, laying the groundwork for deeper collaboration later. Second step is needs and asset assessment. So once the trust is built, the next step is gathering information to understand what the community needs. And just as importantly, what strengths it already has. This includes mapping local assets like skilled individuals, existing organizations, informal networks, or physical spaces. Techniques like surveys, interviews, focus groups, and participatory community mapping help create a full picture in a rural village in India. For example, residents worked with a development team to map out not just where problems were, like water shortages, but also where opportunities existed, such as local wells, traditional water knowledge, and active youth groups. Third step is planning. With a clear understanding of needs and assets, the next step is planning together. This is where the community helps co-create a shared vision, agree on goals, and prioritize which actions to take. It's crucial that this phase is participatory, not top-down. A good plan balances the ambition with what's practical and sets out roles and responsibility. For example, in a township in South Africa, for instance, residents and facilitators held a series of public workshops to design a new community center. Local youth suggested it include not only sports but also a small tech lab, something that the planners hadn't considered, but which became a highlight of the project later. Fourth step is resource mobilization. Once a plan is in place, it's time to gather the resources needed to bring it to life. This might involve applying for grants, building partnerships, leveraging volunteer time, or getting in-kind support from local businesses or councils. In a small town in the Philippines, for example, the community raised funds for flood barriers through a mix of local donations, school fundraising drives, and partnerships with regional NGOs, and showing how powerful local efforts can be, even in low-income settings. Fifth step is implementation or taking action. With resources secure, the community begins putting the plan into action, and this is where ideas become reality. Building infrastructure, starting programs, running events, it's important to stay flexible during this stage because things may not always go according to the plan. To give you an example, in Kenya, a women-led farming cooperative started a project to grow drought-resistant crops, and after facing unexpected soil challenges, they adjusted their strategy midway, shifting to other sort of strategies with support from local university. Implementation is never perfect, but adaptability makes it work. Sixth step is monitoring, evaluation, and learning. No project is complete without reflection. Monitoring and evaluation help track progress, measure impact, and identify what's working and what needs improvement. It's not just about collecting data, it is about learning. Feedback from the community should be constant and adjustments made along the way. To give you an example, in a Latin American urban gardening project, residents met monthly to review their harvest, share challenges, and adjust their planting strategies. This ongoing learning cycle helped increase the yields year after year. Seventh step is sustainability and exit strategy. Community development shouldn't collapse the moment external support ends. It's essential to think about sustainability from the beginning, and this could mean training local leaders, establishing income-generating component, or transitioning management to a local group. To give you an example, in Nepal, after a youth skills training program ended, graduates formed their own small business network to continue mentoring each other, a perfect example of how a project can outlive its original funding. Eighth step, last step, is scaling replication. If a project proves successful, there's a potential to scale it up or replicate it in other areas as well. This might involve expanding services, securing policy support, or integrating the model into government systems. So whether it's a small neighborhood cleanup or a long-term rural development strategy, these steps offer a roadmap for real, lasting change. And as you can see, each phase works best when it's community-led, flexible, and deeply grounded in local realities. Let's talk specifics, tools and methods that help communities do development more effectively. So the tools could be surveys, questionnaires, quantitative data about needs, satisfaction, priorities, interviews, key information, deep qualitative insights from community leaders, focus groups, engaging groups in discussions about issues and ideas. Participatory rural and urban appraisals. These are techniques like mapping, ranking, seasonal calendars. Asset-based community development focuses on what the community already has, skills and network-wise, rather than only the deficits or the needs. Community mapping, which means visual maps of resources, infrastructure, or social hubs. SWOT or pest analysis. Understanding strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, political, economic, social, and technological aspect of development. Workshops and visioning sessions, creative sessions to brainstorm. Monitoring and evaluation tools. Social media or digital platforms as well, community portals. Storytelling, narrative methods, photo voices, community members document via photos or stories to express lived experience. And of course, it's not all smooth. Community development faces real and complex challenges, and let's walk through some of the most common ones and consider how these can be addressed, because acknowledging obstacles is an essential part of doing this work well. One of the biggest barriers is the lack of resources, whether it is funding, technical skills, or simply time. Many communities operate with limited budgets and struggle to access the tools or expertise they need. This can slow down projects or prevent them from launching altogether, and the best way to navigate this is through building strategic partnerships, starting with smaller phased projects and investing in training to build local capacity over time. Another issue is power imbalance within the community itself, and often certain individuals or groups dominate the discussion or decision making, while marginalized voices such as women or young people or migrants or people with disabilities are left out. And to avoid this, facilitators must create inclusive spaces, rotate the leadership roles, and ensure that everyone has equal opportunity to participate in a safe and respectful environment. Political interference is also a common challenge. Changes in government leadership, shifting policies, or bureaucratic delays can abruptly halt and derail community initiatives. To reduce the vulnerability to this, it is important to build strong local advocacy skills, diversify the funding sources, and integrate projects into local structures so they aren't entirely dependent on political will. Closely tied to this is a challenge of sustainability. Many community projects rely heavily on short-term external funding, and when the money stops, so does the project. This can lead to community fatigue and disappointment, and that's why it's so important to plan for sustainability early on by promoting local ownership, designing income-generating component, and ensuring that communities can make the work after external partners leave. Then there's a resistance to change as well. Some community members may oppose new ideas or feel threatened by change, especially if they haven't been included from the start. And this resistance can create tension or slow progress. The key here is early and ongoing dialogue, like listening, communicating clearly, and involving people at every stage to build the trust and consensus. Measuring impact is another challenge, particularly when trying to track long-term complex outcomes, and it's often hard to know which improvements resulted directly from the community development initiatives and which came from the other factors. This can be mitigated through robust monitoring systems that combine data with community storytelling and reflective practices. In culturally diverse or indigenous settings, language and cultural barriers can complicate the engagement as well. Like misunderstandings can arise or processes might unintentionally disrespect local norms. And it's vital to respect cultural protocols, use a bilingual facilitator where necessary, and involve trusted local mediators to ensure communication is respectful and effective. Geographic isolation or remoteness is another practical challenge in many rural or remote communities. Delivering services, holding meetings, assessing support can be difficult in places far from urban centers. Digital tools, mobile outreach, and strong partnerships with regional organizations can help bridge this gap and keep the momentum going. A less visible but equally important issue is the pressure from short project cycles. Many funders demand visible outcomes within 1 or 2 years, but genuine community change often takes much longer. And this creates unrealistic expectations and can limit the long-term planning. One way to respond is by advocating for flexible long-term funding models that allow for adaptation and relationship building over time. Finally, there's a challenge of burnout and volunteer fatigue. Community leaders often carry enormous responsibility, usually unpaid, and the emotional toll can be heavy. To protect their well-being, it's so important to encourage the role sharing, promote the self-care practices, and set some realistic expectations. External support, even just for the coordination or admin, can make a big difference in preventing the burnout. So yes, community development is hard. It is about people working together to improve their shared life in a sustainable way. Its goals include quality of life, inclusion, local capacity, social capital, resilience, and it matters because local knowledge, ownership, trust, and adaptation makes the change more real and lasting. I hope this video gives you a solid foundation to understand what community development is and how you might be a part of it wherever you live. If you live in a suburb, regional town, or indigenous communities, there are always ways to get involved locally. It is about people working together. There are many different types of it and many ways you can get involved into it. Different tools are used into it. And yes, there are real challenges to it, but there are some strategies we can use to avoid that. Thank you for watching this video. I hope this video has given you a good understanding and a solid foundation about community development and how you can be a valuable part of that as well, whether you are in a suburb, a regional area, or a part of indigenous communities. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Please share it with your friends or with someone who care about communities. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.